My name is Andoni Nicolaou, and I am going to be taking you through Jaltech's cryptocurrency arbitrage. I am the head of digital asset operations at Jaltech, and I'm quite excited to share this opportunity with you because we believe we have created the safest arbitrage in the market. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through some of the basics of the investment, how it works. And for some of the viewers who may already be familiar with that, I'm going to go into some of the risks that we face during this trade and take you through exactly how we mitigate those risks. Before jumping into that detail, let me give you some background into Jaltech, who we are and what we do. We consider ourselves alternative investment specialists. Between our fund administration and fund management businesses, we manage over 3.6 billion rands, and that represents over 1,000 investors. And our cryptocurrency division has been responsible for over 700 million rands worth of trades. Right, now getting onto the crux of the matter, arbitrage. I always like to start off with the definition, just to ensure that everyone's on the same page and we know what we're talking about. So what is arbitrage? Arbitrage is the practice of taking advantage of price differentials between two or more markets. At times during my presentation, I might refer to a spread. Spread is exactly the same thing as a price differential. Right, now, so where exactly have we found a mismatch? We found a mismatch in the cryptocurrency market, specifically in the price of Bitcoin offshore and a Bitcoin in South Africa. So the best way to visualize how an arbitrage works is to think of a loop. When we find these mismatches, we need to create a closed loop, and that loop is what allows us to exploit the spread, and that's ultimately how we make a profit. So if you think about starting off with 100,000 Rand in South Africa, that 100,000 Rand needs to be sent offshore. Once it lands in the UK, you can buy the relatively cheaper Bitcoin. The Bitcoin then needs to be sent back to the local market, where it can then be sold at the relatively higher price, and we should be able to realize a profit of 1,000 Rand. Just take note, the numbers I'm using are just for illustrative purposes. So in this example, a spread of 1% would result in a profit of 1,000 Rand at the conclusion of the trade. Now, once you find these mismatches, the real opportunity lies in being able to repeat the loop over and over again. Because every time you complete a loop, that's when you actually realize a profit. So for us, this offers a great opportunity. We're also limited, and Angela briefly mentioned about exchange controls. So we are limited by exchange controls. But there's an opportunity, first and foremost, with the R1 million single discretionary allowance. This allowance applies to all South Africans. It's freely available. You don't need any special permission to access it. So once a client has given us the authority to use their SDA, it means that we can then repeat that same loop. Instead of just looping it once, we can loop it 10 times. And by the end of that process, we land up with 10,000 Rands profit. So we've, instead of just 1,000 Rand once off, we've now multiplied that by 10. Okay, going another step further, we're also entitled to a foreign investment allowance, or an FIA. Now, this is a little bit trickier because this does require a clearance from SARS before any additional funds can be sent offshore. And this allowance can go up to a total of 10 million Rand that investors can allocate offshore. And once again, that's where the real opportunity lies, because extra allocation towards this investment means we can do more loops, and with more loops, we can earn more profit. And we can do all of this without requiring any additional capital outlay. So once again, if we start off with that 100,000 Rand in South Africa, we loop it around, and on top of the 10 times that we can do with the SDA, if we have permission to utilize an investor's FIA, we can then do that an additional 100 times. And that significantly improves profit with the potential of earning up to 100,000 Rand just in profit. So in summary, what is the opportunity? The total opportunity is an individual's 11 million Rand foreign allowance, which consists of a 1 million Rand SDA and a 10 million Rand FIA. And that 11 million Rand is fully accessible with a nominal deposit, with as little as 100,000 Rand. Investors can deposit more than that if they like, and it does make it more efficient and slightly more profitable. But for most individuals, 100,000 Rand is a much easier amount to start off with. So I did mention that we believe we have the safest trade, and our track record speaks towards that. We've traded more than 700 million Rands to date. We trade every single day. At the moment, we're averaging between 7 and 10 million Rand. And the fact that we trade every single day ensures that the turnaround time for this trade is as quick as possible. Investors don't need to forego their deposit for an enormous long amount of time. Generally, we're seeing turnarounds depending on how much of their allowance is allocated towards this investment. And SDA can take us less than 10 business days to turn around back to clients. We've traded over 3,000 times, and in all of those trades, we've never recorded a single loss. And I'll speak towards how we do this in the coming slides. Okay, now I keep mentioning and harping on about how safe this trade is. Safe, of course, does not mean that it is risk-free. So every time we initiate a loop, we're exposed to a number of risks. We're exposed to market risk. That's in both foreign exchange markets and the crypto markets. We're also exposed to a little bit of counterparty risk and regulatory risk, as we touched on with the capital controls. Now, cryptocurrencies are notoriously volatile. So it was absolutely imperative for us to be able to mitigate our exposure to market risk. Now, I can show you exactly how we do that. So on step one of our trade, we have to send Rands offshore, in this example to the UK. As soon as we do that, we're exposed to fluctuations in the foreign exchange rate. Now, the way that we have set up our loop, we are 100% hedged, and we are never exposed to any fluctuations in the foreign exchange rate. So even if the Rand strengthens during the time that we are initiating a loop, it will not affect our spread, and it will not affect our ability to make a profit at the end of the loop. Once we've actually sent the money offshore and acquired the Bitcoin, our exposure moves away from the foreign exchange markets, and we now run the risk of being exposed to the crypto price or the price of Bitcoin. Now, if Bitcoin devalues in the time between us purchasing the cheap Bitcoin in the UK market and selling it in the South African market, again, we risk losing our spread, and we risk actually trading at a loss. So how have we mitigated this? We've partnered with a company called GSR. They are one of the largest and most experienced crypto traders in the market. And through their systematic trading engine, they are able to execute both legs of the Bitcoin trades in fractions of a second. And that essentially completely eliminates our exposure to fluctuations in the Bitcoin market. It also means that whether the price of Bitcoin is going up or trending downwards, again, it makes no difference, because we are simply taking advantage of the spread and the price differential between the UK price of Bitcoin and the South African price of Bitcoin. So I've dealt with how we handle market risk and how we mitigate that. We also run a small element of exchange risk or counterparty risk. Thankfully, it's not the early days of crypto anymore, when it was pretty much the Wild West and exchanges were being hacked left, right, and center. Today, they have matured a great deal, security is way more advanced, and incidences of hacking are very, very rare these days. Even with this in mind, we only trade on the most reputable and longest running exchanges, and we're only ever exposed during the execution of that loop, which, as I hope I showed, is actually a very short space of time. We don't leave assets sitting on there for days on end. As soon as funds become available, we immediately withdraw them and they go back into client accounts. Touching back on the regulatory risks, capital controls have been discussed, and we are fully compliant at every step of the trade. All of the volume that we trade goes through authorized dealer, and that ensures that we are compliant and that we monitor every single client's limits to ensure that they never exceed their allowance. So how does someone take advantage of this? It's really, really simple. All we need from clients is an initial deposit and for them to fill out a couple of simple forms. And from that moment forward, Jaltech handles the rest. We do all the admin. We obviously monitor the trades and we report to you on a monthly basis to show exactly what kind of profits you have earned. So while most South Africans or average South Africans would typically go year on year and just forego their foreign allowance, Jaltech's arbitrage offers an opportunity to make a nice little profit at a very, very low risk. So for anybody who is interested in this opportunity, please feel free to reach out to me. I'll be available for questions, and my email address, as you can see, is on the slide over there. So thank you very much.